To another edition of Eye on the Issues, and we are talking today with Sarah Penn. She represents House District 33 in the great state of Wyoming. Of course, there is a session coming up. It's a budget session for the state legislature starting on Monday, 20 days. So Sarah, thanks for joining me. And I know there's a couple bills that are hot on your radar. Let's begin by talking about, if we can, HB 78, which is titled Pornography and Obscenity Crimes and Penalties. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity. So this bill is fairly simple. It does a few things. First of all, it draws on the definition that we already have in Wyoming statute of obscenities and adds to it explicitly to include visual depictions of rape and sexual abuse. So we just kind of clarify a couple of things there. The next thing that it does is increases the penalties. So if someone is found guilty of distributing obscenities to minors, especially, the penalties will go up from $1,000, a flat $1,000 misdemeanor fine, to $1,000 per day that this is accessible to adults, and it's $6,000 a day if it's accessible to minors. So we're targeting websites, internet sites whose content, greater than a third of their content, is obscene materials. And so basically porn sites is what we're looking at for this. We also add in there a definition in our statute of what is harmful to minors. It's very similar to the obscenities definition that we have. And then finally, it requires a verification of age to access the content for any of these websites that are accessible in Wyoming. So
let's begin with is there anything out there close to this right now in the state of Wyoming, or just nothing?
So besides the penalties that we already have for possessing child pornography and things like that, this is the only thing that addresses specific entities such as websites, porn sites. And so it's a little different in that aspect. I brought it just really as a protection to women and children. You know, pornography is such a cancer in our society these days, and those things affect people's lives. It trickles down into individuals' well-being. We're seeing so much human trafficking and difficulties that way. And so this really is intended to be more of a protection, so we can cut back on the availability of some of these contents.
You know, it seems almost like a no-brainer, but in terms of support, have you spoken to some of your colleagues, and how are you feeling about this?
Yeah, I agree with you. It seems like a no-brainer. Generally, I've had good support, especially from conservative sides, of course. And I've had a few articles written in some of the local media that have actually been pretty favorable. And so we'll see how things go along. I did have somebody contact me and say that they've seen the data that shows the how porn can be beneficial in society, and so I know there's going to be some pushback, which will be interesting to see what comes of it.
How porn can be? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I'm not aware of that research, so we'll see what they end up coming up with.
Yeah, hopefully that was somewhat of a joke, but all right. So, and do we have any idea? I know it's a 20-day session. How do things play out in terms of when do you introduce it on day one, or how do things go from there?
Yeah, so because it's a budget session, then they really want to crack down on the number of bills that goes through, understandably. And so this session, in order to have it introduced, first it has to come out of the speaker's drawer, which sometimes can be a feat. Second, we have to have a 2/3 majority vote to say, yes, we want to introduce this and send this to a committee. And so the work begins on these bills this session, really even before we introduce them.
Okay, interesting. And have you had any conversations at all with the speaker about this?
So far, I have not. We'll see how things go. It's going to be interesting. All of my bills are bills that might be considered a little bit controversial by some. Again, in my mind, they seem like no-brainers, but not everyone seems to align with my thoughts.
Well, you know, last session, I know there's some bills that didn't come out of the speaker's desk, and I know a lot of people were left jaw-dropping, saying, why? So hopefully that doesn't happen with this bill, because this is one of those bills that really needs to get out there just to protect people, protect families.
Yeah.
Let's skip over to HB 49. It's called the By the People Act. It's about government transparency. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this bill. We've been seeing a lot of situations across Wyoming in my own county, where it seems like people's access to public meetings is being cut, and sometimes intentionally. In our own county, there was a situation where um, an individual read some content from a book that they checked out at the library that was in the children's section, and it was extremely graphic. In fact, it was the same content, if anyone's aware, that Congressman Kennedy had read before Congress about 2 weeks prior. And she was the response from the commission was, we don't need to be so graphic. And the next meeting, public comment was removed from the agenda. And I'm hearing these things across the state too, in school board meetings and different things. In fact, one school board member in a different county said, these aren't actually public meetings. They're just meetings that are held in public. And they're trying to cut out public comment and people's interaction, which really is the wrong idea. So what this bill does is requires public comment in all public meetings. They can choose if they want to have per item public comment, or if they want to have a timed public comment at the end or the beginning, but they need to have public comment. Another thing that it does is asks that all attempts be made to offer remote live access. Given the rural nature of our state, it's difficult a lot of times for people to travel long distances, and especially in the winters, in order to attend. And therefore it's very important that people have that opportunity to still interact and be present while not actually maybe being physically present. And then it also requires that any minutes from meetings and those live recordings be accessible to easily accessible to people for 5 years.
And those all sound like solid, proposals, and what you're looking for makes complete sense. I do know some public meetings, the comment period is after like 2 hours of them going through, like, for example, Board of Education going through everything that they need to. And at the very end, if somebody is willing to sit there and wait for 2 hours, they get to make a public comment. I'm hoping that at some point that it's not always like that.
Yes, I completely agree. I think that we need to have it solidified in our statute that says that it's a priority for people to be able to speak with their elected. I mean, the citizens should be the boss, and it's not the other way around. And so we need to make sure that people have the ability to interact and do so in situations that make it feasible for them, so that they're not having to take off work and things like that, because that's just not realistic.
Mm-hmm. And the lawmakers or committee members, whatever the case may be, Board of Education people, they should want to hear what the public wants. I mean, they really work for the public. So for them to say, well, we don't need a comment period, we don't need this, we don't need, it just doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense.
It does have that feeling that they don't seem to value people's opinion. Personally, I want to hear people's opinions because I consider myself an expert at very few things, and the citizens are the experts. And so I want to hear from people and their thoughts and opinions and their experiences, so that I can make good and right decisions for our communities.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's go to HB 115, which is in respect to donated blood. I'm going to let you give us the full name.
Yeah, so this one, the title is a little anticlimactic. It says donated blood mRNA disclosure, and it's a very simple bill. It's 1 page, but it's so important. I'm really excited about it. What it does is asks donors to declare if they've had any sort of mRNA vaccination in their lifetime. It then would require that the blood bags be marked conspicuously, so that we can know if that particular bag of blood has had any type of mRNA vaccination. And finally, it allows people to request in non-emergent situations that they may have non-vaccinated blood.
And so, was there nothing like this out there?
There's very little. There's been a few attempts. Montana made an attempt, and I think Tennessee, if I remember right, has made an attempt. I don't think there's been anything that's passed. There's a great amount of pushback for these ideas. It seems like they don't really want these thoughts getting out there. And in my opinion, I think, we have to be careful because we still are in such early time frame when we're talking about these new products, these new therapies and things. Normally, they would be in trials and being tested for years and years before we could make the determination as to what are the long-term complications potentially and effects. And so for us to just immediately discount the possibility that there could be something, it just is really confusing to me. In the past, military have been asked to not, depending on where they serve, if they served in certain parts of Europe, they were asked not to donate blood for years and years because they just didn't know if the meat that they might have consumed could have had mad cow, that it wasn't tested. And so to be safe, they said, you don't donate blood anymore. And, with HIV, when HIV first became a thing, people were receiving these blood transfusions and started getting HIV from blood transfusions. And so this has the potential with the spike proteins. We just don't know what the long-term implications are. The only studies that I'm aware of, the longest they go out to monitor how long a spike protein can still be found in someone's blood is 6 months. And so to say that, oh, they're safe, we're good, we don't have any concerns, just seems nearsighted.
Mhm. Yeah, and in respect to the vaccines, like the COVID vaccine, there are plenty of people out there that will attest that they just don't feel the same ever since they had the vaccine. So I think what you're proposing is very valid and needs to get out there. Let me ask you this. I know those are the three bills that you're proposing and going to introduce. What else is on the table, or do you expect to be on the table this session that you're interested in?
Oh, wow. We've got a lot of really great bills, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a rat race to see whose bills we can get out of the drawer and then get passed into a committee so that we can actually talk about some of these things. We've got some good gun control bills, some red flag bills that are coming along. We have some protections as far as there's one, What is a Woman Act, that I'm a co-sponsor of, that identifies gender. We're going to talk about gender based on biologics. And so that'll be an interesting one. It's bound to be a hot topic. There's a lot of really good things coming, in addition to, of course, the budget, which is the main event here. And, I'm getting literally hundreds of emails every day saying, we've got to cut our taxes. I'm struggling. I'm going to lose my home. I'm going to be taxed out of this or that. And so people are hurting. Our economy's not been doing well, and our taxes are just going up. And so we've really got to curb our spending. And so that's another focus of mine, is just making sure that anything that we vote on is there to benefit the people. And also, is it the proper role of government to be doing those things?
Mhm. In respect to the budget, has Wyoming, I know you've got a lot of energy money that comes into Wyoming. Has there been a surplus recently? And is there room for the tax cuts that people are asking for?
Yeah. So with our last session, we had a nearly a $2 billion surplus that was unexpected. And so we had our supplemental bill in our general session, and the spending was wild. Just things that, when citizens should not be strapped with that ever, especially when people are already struggling so much. One thing comes to mind, that there was a request for $750,000 to paint a new mural on the wall inside the House chambers. And, there's things like that, just you see them again and again. And I just don't feel like that's a right use of people's hard-earned money. And
Mhm.
so I have a feeling that I will have a lot of no votes on much of what's coming up.
Mhm. And tell me, are you excited about this session?
I am. I'm excited. It's going to be great. I'm looking forward to fighting for the people of Wyoming and the things that they're wanting and that they're needing. And hopefully we can make some great things happen and have some successes.
Let us hope so. And it'd be great if we can connect with you again in the middle of the session to see how things are going.
Yeah, let's plan on it. That's great. I'd love it.
Absolutely. Okay, so folks, wyliberty.org. If you want to find out more about what's going on in Wyoming, it's wyliberty.org. liberty.org to find out about the Wyoming Liberty Group. Thanks for watching this. Sarah, we appreciate your time.
Appreciate you. Thank you.